You're alone on the subway platform. You shimmy down onto the tracks. What happens next?
Well, I started crawling over the tracks. And as I did that, I extended out my hand and grabbed what I now know is the third rail. And bam! Lights out!
Hey everyone, I'm Propeller Penny, and this is Creepy Backstories, the show where we get to hear first-hand accounts of how the Heartstoppers' creepy characters became creepy. In the studio today we have third rail Ruby. She's most recognized by her signature blackened veins, her burnt-up little outfit, and she glows a warm shade of red, all as a result of being electrocuted by the NYC subway system. Of course, Ruby, the name says it all, but let's just dive right in. How did Ruby become third rail Ruby?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. Gosh, where do I begin?
Well, how about just setting the scene? Take us to the subway platform.
Oh, sure. Well, it was just a typical Sunday evening after a day out with the family. My parents and I were in the subway waiting for the G train, which of course was delayed as usual. And I, being a baby, I started getting antsy and bored. I was probably a little hungry. So I'm looking around the station for some entertainment when something about the tracks just catches my eye. And I'm trying to figure this out, right? Like there's this hum, this frequency or something that I'm drawn to.
So you heard a frequency?
Well, not so much like a distinct sound, like I'm not a dog, but like a vibe. Like I'm being drawn to like some kind of current. So, I look over at my parents and see like, okay, what are they doing over there? Do they even notice that I'm like super intrigued by this?
And did they?
Well, no, they were just glued to their phones, swiping back and forth between Lyft and Uber, comparing prices, like just debating, like, how do we get home? Do we take a car? Do we wait? And I'm thinking, hello, it's the G train. We knew this was going to happen, so I decide to crawl away from everybody, away from this exhausting debate, because I am far more interested in the rails below.
Okay, so you're alone on the subway platform. You shimmy down onto the tracks. What happens next?
Well, I started crawling over the tracks. And as I did that, I extended out my hand and grabbed what I now know is the third rail. And bam! Lights out! That's all I can really remember from that moment.
Wow, okay. By the way, for those who aren't familiar with the third rail, if you think of a typical train, you've got the train wheels rolling down the two tracks. With a third rail system, you have those two tracks plus an additional rail. That's the third rail. And so this rail carries anywhere from 600 to 750 volts of electricity. Okay, that's direct current.
Right.
And so the train has this component, I think it's called a contact shoe, that makes contact with the third rail as the train moves along the track. So this contact transmits the electricity that powers the train. So stop and think about that for a minute. That is enough electricity to power a train.
I know, that's so crazy, right?
And you, Ruby, you touched that rail.
I sure did. And because of the way I was positioned during my crawl, I somehow had my back right foot touching the regular rail while I touched with my hand the third rail. And because I was touching both rails at the same time, I essentially completed the electricity circuit. And yeah, I electrocuted my entire body.
Okay, wait, but how did you figure this out? Because you see rats running across the subway tracks all the time, and they are not getting electrocuted.
So I worked with my doctors and these really great MTA workers to piece together what happened, and that's how we figured it out. The only way to complete the current is to touch the third rail and the regular rail, which somehow my little baby body did. It's just science.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, and by the way, I'd like to point out that while it sounds dangerous, third rail systems are actually great for the environment. They're purely electric, there are no fossil fuels burning, so there's no exhaust.
Oh, yeah, that's the last thing New York City needs, more exhaust.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, anyway, so it's much cleaner than steam or diesel-powered systems. Just fun facts I discovered when researching my own electrocution.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I actually didn't know that. So let's get back to the story. You wake up, you come to. What happens next?
Yeah, okay, so when I regained my consciousness, like basically came back to life, I immediately noticed that my skin is this purplish, grayish blue tone. And I noticed I have these jet black veins running along my arms and my legs, and I can still feel the current running through my body, and I still do to this day.
Oh, wow, okay, so you're okay with this. You're obviously excited just talking about it. I mean, you are lighting up.
Oh, definitely. Like, I am loving this look.
Okay, I love it. So what happens next, Ruby?
Right. So I somehow, in my little baby body, managed to climb back up onto the subway platform. I scurry over to my parents, and I show them my new look. Look at me now, Mom and Dad. Look at me now.
And how did they react?
Well, let's just say they weren't as excited as I was.
Can you tell me a little more? What did they do?
Well, they gasped. Their jaws dropped. Both of them just stood there frozen, right there on the platform. But in that moment, after the confusion settled, the shock wore off, they could see that I was pretty happy and content with what had just happened and who I had just become, basically. And that was it. We eventually went home.
And how did you end up getting home, by the way?
Oh, good question. Like, after all that, right? The B-32 bus actually showed up, so we left the station and went above ground and caught that. You know, speaking of the bus, like, when we got on it, I distinctly remember the bus driver's face when she saw me. The lady was terrified. And I just kind of realized in that moment, like, oh, this is my new reality. Just scaring the devil out of people on a regular basis.
And how does that make you feel?
Honestly, I love it.
Tell me why.
I mean, I think it's kind of funny that people, you know, like, oh, it's a baby, let me peer into the stroller. And they're like, what the hell? I mean, it's funny. I understand that I'm not something you see every day. I have a very unique look and a unique existence.
Okay.
And so I just keep this in mind. You know, my dad is pushing me in the stroller throughout Brooklyn, and people, they get a glimpse of me and they just jump, they scream. They legit get scared. So yeah, I get a lot of amusement out of just like scaring people. But beyond that, you know, I've also come to realize on a more deeper level that people are just scared of what they don't know and what they don't understand.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
But here's the thing. I have found that when the leaves start changing color and the air changes from hot and humid to cool and crisp, people's attitude towards me also starts to change.
I mean, it sounds like you're just describing fall.
Yes, I am. And when I start seeing the spooky decorations and the pumpkins out on display throughout the neighborhood, I know things are about to get fun.
Well, what do you mean?
People are obsessed with me this time of year. I mean, they can't stay away. My dad cannot run an errand with me without getting stopped by groups of people who just want to look at me.
That is wild.
It really is. But can I tell you what the best night of the year is?
Please.
It's the night when the community comes out, dressed as monsters and villains and characters with their own dark eyes and their own blackened veins. There's candy at every door. There's scary music off in the distance. It is the night they love me the most. It's Halloween.
Third Rail Ruby, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story.
Thank you. This has been great.